I'm kinda late to this topic since this week is finals week for me, but hey, better late than never. This video ended up longer than I anticipated it to be because I actually have a lot to say about this. I do have a lot to say about the Ogryn changes, but I primarily have a lot to say from the perspective of someone who has been playtesting for Fatshark for the past 4 years, and I can hopefully shed some light on why this happened. But before I go any farther, I want it to be crystal clear that no one should insult or threaten Fatshark or any of the testers over these changes. That's fucking lame, and will do nothing to help fix the issue at hand. For those who don't know, Ogryn's tree got some nodes shuffled around in the Grim Protocols update. Towering Presence is now at the top of the tree rather than buried in the Gunlugger side, and Big Boom has been moved onto a linear path alongside Ammo Stash. Subsequently, Reloaded and Ready has been moved down in the right side of the tree where Big Boom was, and Pacemaker has also been moved down to where Towering Presence was. 2 operative modifier nodes were also changed, but the big changes everyone is talking about are these passive nodes. Now, Ogryn's talent tree has always had an issue with being the most restricting skill tree. Psyker, Vet, and Zealot all have a good amount of variety that you can run in their skill trees between the 3 paths, and even if they aren't necessarily meta, you can still mix and match enough to have a large amount of choices to make many different builds. The choices Ogryn gets by comparison, though, is quite binary. You're either running a heavy attack build or a Gunlugger build. While there is technically a tank build in the center of the tree, it's not run that much because it's not very good, and is instead treated as a set of passive and active talents that you can dip into to complement your one of 2 build choices. Now, the center does offer some variety, such as taking Loyal Protector with Heavy Hitter instead of Bull Rush, but generally if you play Ogryn, you don't get that many options when building for him. If you zoom into the skill tree and look at it on paper, the changes that were made with the Grim Protocols update seems reasonable. Towering Presence was buried in the Gunlugger side of the tree and was moved to the top where the other general talents lie. Reloaded and Ready and Pacemaker were placed into the Gunlugger side of the tree since they're ranged focus talents, and Big Boom was moved onto the linear path next to Ammo Stash so that you can grab it without having to go through a tax node. On paper, all of this does make sense, but when you consider how you actually build Ogryn in games and how the rest of the tree is laid out in general, it doesn't really make that much sense. The majority of Gunlugger builds run Heavy Stubbers, which want Steady Grip to help them survive, and Reloaded and Ready since it procs on activating Point Blank Barrage. This reshuffle locks Steady Grip behind Towering Presence, which isn't a useful talent node for Ogryn's skill tree, and Reloaded and Ready behind Pacemaker, which also isn't necessary in Gunlugger builds since you're getting instant reloads from Point Blank Barrage, free shots from Burst Limiter Override and Charmed Reload, and constant ability cooldown reduction from Burst Limiter's Key Node and Bruiser. This makes it so that Gunlugger builds now require you to take 2 not useful nodes that you didn't have to take before, taking away 2 talent points from these Gunlugger builds and resulting in a net nerf. Having Reloaded and Ready at the top of Ogryn's tree allowed everyone to get a free damage increase for kickbacks and rumblers, regardless of the build you ran since it was only a 1 skill point investment. Its new location in the tree makes you take an additional 3 nodes to get to it on a Heavy Hitter build, which makes it more costly to get to and is also overall a net nerf. Big Boom's new spot also now blocks you from getting it when running Bull Rush, which isn't really a nerf but does limit the usefulness of frag bombs on Bull Rush builds, which were never really a problem to begin with. This also makes the Rumbler less useful on Bull Rush builds, since grabbing Big Boom is now impossible and Reloaded and Ready is too expensive to go grab, which further limits build variety on an already low variety class. These changes overall amount to a minor nerf. Gunlugger loses 2 talent points, and Heavy Hitter loses access to 15% extra damage when running the kickback, which was considered the meta-ranged weapon to use when playing high-level Heavy Hitter builds. This is also a fun nerf since Rumbler is no longer as good as it used to be on Heavy Hitter builds. It wasn't as good as the kickback, but the talents that buffed it made it not that bad and really fun to play, and with these changes, people are more pigeonholed into using the kickback. These are nothing game-changing and won't really affect Ogryn other than making him feel slightly less fun to play, but regardless, it does not feel good for the weakest class in the game to get any nerfs right now, no matter how small they actually are. Also, to clarify, when I say that Ogryn is the weakest class, I mean that comparatively to the other 3 existing classes. Ogryn is not unplayably bad, nor is he worthless on higher difficulties. You can absolutely play him on Auric Maelstroms and even Havoc mode. He just comes out behind the other classes a little in raw power and significantly behind them in build variety. Now the burning question is, why did Fat Shark feel the need to make these changes to Ogryn in the first place? As someone who has playtested extensively for Fat Shark, I think I can answer this question. For those that may not know me that well, I've been working with Fat Shark since the COVID pandemic in 2020. I began playtesting for Kruber's Grail Knight career, and then continued to participate in every single playtest available for both Vermintide and eventually Darktide. I was an early alpha tester for Darktide, I have a special frame and my name in the credits to prove it, and also participated in every Darktide playtest up until the release of the class overhaul update that added skill trees. While I cannot speak about the specifics in these tests, I have signed so many NDAs that I've lost count at this point, and I cannot speak on what exactly is going on testing-wise after the skill tree update since I was forced to take a hiatus due to personal reasons. I know how these tests operate, and I can offer some educated guesses as to why these changes were pushed through. First and foremost, I want it to be known that those of us who playtest do so on a volunteer basis. We volunteer our time to playtest various things for Fat Shark in a controlled environment and offer our feedback to them in such a way that it allows them to get outside perspectives from people who have a certain level of understanding of what they're actually talking about. A lot of our suggestions are listened to and implemented in some capacity, but there is also some of them that are not. Also, there is no one individual or one small group that is listened to more than others. Every single person has a voice and is listened to equally. There was one time in Vermintide's life cycle where Fat Shark did listen to one group more than others, and it caused a lot of issues. So while I know we like to clown on Fat Shark for not always learning from their mistakes, this is one of them that they have not repeated since. Now, I did just say that I haven't been in the testing pool for the past couple of months, so it is technically possible that Fat Shark has made this mistake again. Personally, though, I think there's another answer that's more plausible. While playtesting, it was not unheard of for us to have additional information regarding future changes, or for us to test multiple patches at once, which is the entire reason we signed so many NDAs. When this happened, we would make changes based upon the extra knowledge that we have of what's coming after the immediate patch, which was always information the general community did not have. So my assumption is that an Ogryn tree overhaul is coming later on, and these changes were made with the specific knowledge of what that overhaul will consist of. It does kind of make these changes still strange to push now, though, since this overhaul is presumably not coming until 2025, and with Fat Shark going on their winter holiday season soon, that means that we're going to have to deal with these changes until they get back. Are these changes a big deal? No, it changes virtually nothing about Ogryn, but it still is strange regardless. The good news, though, is that it's actually quite easy to band-aid fix the problems this reshuffle caused, at least until Fat Shark's winter break is over and they can make more solid changes. Assuming Fat Shark either doesn't want to roll back the reshuffle, or physically can't because of spaghetti code, then all they have to do is switch the positions of Pacemaker and Reloaded and Ready, and then switch Steady Grip with Towering Presence. If they wanted to throw Ogryn players another bone, they could also move Soften them up to somewhere else in the skill tree so that every blitz could grab it, such as switch it with Dominate, but I'd assume something like that is coming in a future Ogryn change anyway. And I want to make this crystal clear again. Even if my speculations are wrong and this was just a simple mistake or oversight from the playtesters, that is no reason to harass or insult them over it. Playtesters spend a large amount of time testing various things, so something is bound to slip through the cracks eventually. It's also pretty rare for a mistake like this to actually slip through the cracks in the first place, so I'm more than willing to give them the benefit of the doubt if this was just a simple mistake.